We made a winning start to 2023 and have a massive cup game on the horizon to look forward to. But before we can even let ourselves think about Tuesday's trip to Old Trafford, focus is fully on today's visit from Lincoln City. And if Dean Holden's side can produce a performance like they did on New Year's Day against Portsmouth, then surely come 5 o'clock today, we should all have big smiles on our faces. As I said, Lincoln City are at the Valley today. The Imps are out of form and haven't tasted victory in the league since November the 19th. So they are hopefully the ideal opponents for us to face. Saying that though, Lincoln have taken points off of all League One's top 7 so far this season. So we certainly won't be underestimating them. And we've got lots for you ahead of kickoff here on Charlton TV. We're here exclusively from manager Dean Holden, who I spoke to a little earlier this afternoon. And around 9,000 addicts will be heading to Manchester United on Tuesday, so we couldn't let our last league game before the cup tie pass without talking about that match. We'll also hear from midfielder Scott Fraser, who scored a brilliant individual goal in last weekend's victory over Portsmouth at Fratton Park. And I'm delighted to say I have Alan Curbishley in the studio with me today, and alongside him a player we would much rather seeing him do what he does best out on the pitch. But very happy to hand you your Charlton TV debut, Manny Egbo. How are you? And firstly, how's the rehabilitation going?
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me. I'm well. I'm getting there on the rehab side of things. I'd like to think I'm quite a way through the rehab now, and getting towards the last stretch, let's say. So hopefully within the next, well, without putting a timeline on it, a few weeks, I'll be back out on the grass running and back out with the lads before we know it.
That's really good to hear, because I think Curbs, the impact Manny has had on the team when he's been available to start, it kind of goes without saying, a very influential signing from the summer.
Absolutely, yeah, and very athletic and can turn defence into attack quite quickly, which is what I enjoyed. And if we played 3 at the back, it suits him to be a wing back, and he can express himself. And if we're playing a flat back 4, defensively he was sound. So yeah, it was a big loss when he got himself injured. Or you didn't get yourself injured, did you?
I actually did. Yeah, it was completely self-inflicted.
No one near, was it?
Not at all. No, I kicked it back my own heel. It's quite embarrassing to say, and then yeah, ended up rupturing my quad.
Well, we've helped you with your rehabilitation, because for those of you that don't know, we're quite up high here on the Charlton TV studio, so you managed to get through the test of the stairs, which I must say I struggle with. But
I'm just telling him he's lucky. When Lenny Lawrence was the manager, this stand was twice the size of this, and whenever he had the ump, which was quite often, he used to make us run up and down it, which they would never do now. Players would never do that sort of running. But Lenny used to like seeing us go up and down his stand.
Yeah, that was my hardest gym session yet.
Well, look, we are so delighted to have you here today, and to get the perspective of a player involved in the current squad, it was a fantastic performance at Portsmouth. And perhaps one of the things we've found ourselves saying a little bit too much this season is we want to back it up with another good display. Yeah. What's the mood like in the camp this week?
It's been top. After a win, it always is, and we one of the top teams in the league with also with promotion hopes, so to go out there and beat them at their own place was obviously big, but we've done that before. We beat them here and couldn't quite push on the way we would have wanted to, so the focus has always been on this game and trying to follow it up, like you said, with another good result.
Curbs, from a manager's point of view as well, how much can one big performance, one big victory make? I mean, I think it always helps when it's over Portsmouth as well, but it gives Dean some momentum and some positivity going into what's going to be a really exciting few days for the club.
I think the big thing, it came on the back of such a poor performance at Oxford. So chalk and cheese in the performances and obviously the result. But I'm just looking now, I know everyone's got to mention Man U, whatever, but we've got 2 home games coming up, and if we can get the 6 points, I do believe we'll be looking upwards as opposed to over their shoulder. If we don't get the results, we'll be still looking over our shoulder, and I think that would ease the pressure. So get a result today, Man United takes care of itself, and then the Barnsley game, and who knows, this is the sort of league that and we need to put 4 or 5 games together. If we can put 4 or 5 games together, we'll suddenly be threatening the top 8, around about that, and who knows after that. So I think this is bigger. Today, for me, is bigger than Man U and Barnsley. Today's the big game for me.
It sets the tone for a big week. Manny, a big week, of course, because we go to Old Trafford. But I have my notes here that say it's a big week also because Love Island returns, and you're a big fan. Please tell me more.
It's a massive week. It's honestly a massive week.
What are you looking forward to more?
It's not on the same night as the Man United game, is it?
No, of course not.
Oh, right.
Of course
You'd
not.
have a real tough decision to make then.
That would be a travesty. But I'm sure I'd be... No, I'm planning on travelling up to Manchester and watching that game live. But just a few days after that, of course, is the Love Island premiere. It's winter edition, and we're back, and I'm going to have Curbs round, I think. Going to show him, going to watch a game with him, hopefully, and...
You could be a Love Island convert, Curbs.
100%.
Maybe we can start making it a segment of each week's show here as well. We can preview, assess how it's gone.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
I don't think it's for me.
OK, well, on that note, let's reflect back on today. And earlier this afternoon, I caught up with the manager, Dean Holden, who revealed his starting 11 for today's game against Lincoln. Good to go. Dean, back at the Valley today, one change to your lineup. Can you talk us through your lineup for today's game?
Yeah, so actually Maynard Brewer took a whack in the face, unfortunately. He got a ball right down the middle of his face last week at training, so he's following concussion protocols, and Craig McGilvery comes in for a start. We've got Owen O'Connell back on the bench as well, which is pleasing. And
we're coming back into the game off of an excellent result and an excellent performance at Portsmouth. What are you hoping the team take from that game and implement this afternoon?
We spoke a lot about focusing on what's in front of us, and we've had a good week's training since the game. The game's in the history books. We've not done enough times this season backed up a good performance and a good win, so that's been the message to the players this week, and focusing on what was it that got us that win at Portsmouth. It was a really dogged defensive display where the distances were excellent in comparison to what we saw at Oxford a few days earlier, and obviously with the ball we dominated in the right areas of the pitch and had some fantastic moments in front of goal, so much the same hopefully today in front of our crowd.
And we come against a Lincoln side who have picked up 2 decent results of their own. What kind of challenge are you expecting from them today?
A tough one. They're around us in the league. The players are well aware of where we can get to in the league with 3 points today. So for that reason, it's a big game for us as well. Lincoln are a team. Obviously, Mark Kennedy's been there a little bit longer than me, but quite new to the club. Trying to get a style of play going, which is quite expansive. They play a back 3 normally with centre halves really split and wide and expansive, so we've got to make sure that we get our defensive duties right, but we know that there's areas there when we regain possession, as we saw last week at Portsmouth, that we can really hurt them. So first and foremost, we've got to make sure we're committed as we were last week and earn the right to get the 3 points.
We're back in front of our home supporters today. What difference can they make?
Well, they proved already, haven't they, what a fantastic crowd they can be home and away this season, and all we ask is for them to turn up as they do every week at kick-off and get right behind the lads, and then it's up to us. It's up to us to get them out of the seats. It's up to us to show them what we're made of. And we had a nice moment last week after the Portsmouth game. I think that was important, where we were able to sort of connect with our supporters. And yeah, from the first minute today, that's what we want to see.
Dean, thank you for your time and best of luck today. Great to hear from Dean there, as always. So let's take a look at that confirmed starting 11 for Charlton. And Curbs, whether you call it luck, I don't know what you would describe it as, but that #1 shirt in the last couple of months has been almost on a rotation. We see Craig stepping up, but just how destabilising is that for a defensive solid foundation when you're going through a hard time?
Back 4, back 5, he likes to be settled with the keeper, but I think we're quite blessed with you're talking about now 2 goalkeepers out, and we've still got McGilvery, who's good enough to be in our first team anyway. So we're quite blessed, and I'm sure he will see it as a chance. I'll be saying, I know that everyone's playing well, etc. But I'm back in now, and I've got an opportunity to stay in if I perform. Yeah,
it's a role like no other, is it? That goalkeeper position. Manny, you know these boys better than most. What do you think of this starting 11? It looks a strong formation to me, particularly going forward as well, with the width that we've got on the pitch and the personnel that Dean's gone with.
Absolutely, it's good to see pretty much the same 11 as the last game. It brings that consistency, and like you said, apart from Craig in goal, or Ash in goal, should I say, it's just one change. So I think we'll be looking to use them wide players just the same way they always do. Get out their fullbacks. Get after them, press as well. We can press up the pitch with them, and hopefully a similar result to the last one.
Curbs, I think I've said on here a few times, I always feel that if Scott Fraser's having a good game, Charlton are having a good game, and he's been pushed further up the pitch with Albie Morgan, who again is a really technically gifted footballer, a bit of creativity, with the protection of George Dobson behind him. That's something that Dean Holden seemed to have kind of changed quite quickly and most consistently since taking charge.
See, I look at Fraser, if he's going to play as a number 10, I will set him targets. I want 5, 6, 7 goals. I want you to make 5, 6, 7 goals. Because if you're going to play in that role, that's my expectation of what you should be getting. And I think he showed last week with that goal at Portsmouth that he can nick a goal and he can make a goal. He's also got Payne breathing around him, because he's very similar in my eyes, Payne. I think previously he'd been used as holding midfield player with Dobbo. So now perhaps the shackles are off. And I think there's a couple of players that needed a bit of a lift. I think Stockley needs a lift with a goal. I think he did as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing him today.
Well, we do speak to Scott Fraser later on in the show, but for now, let's have a little look at the league standings. We will start with the bottom half as we currently sit 17th, having risen a place following Sunday's win at Portsmouth, and a win today could take us back into the top half. Morecambe leapfrogged Forest Green Rovers and MK Dons with an emphatic 5-0 victory over Burton Albion on Sunday. That result also meant that the Brewers dropped into the bottom 4, with Accrington Stanley rising to 19th on goal difference. Elsewhere, Fleetwood Town rose 4 places after earning a 3-0 triumph at Shrewsbury Town on New Year's Day. Into the top half now, and there was a change in the top 2 last weekend. Plymouth Argyle remained top following their 3-1 win over MK Dons on Sunday, though Sheffield Wednesday's 5-0 routing of Cambridge United took the Owls above Ipswich Town, who dropped to 3rd following a 1-1 draw against today's opponents, Lincoln. Derby County climbed up to 4th with a 4-0 victory at home to Accrington on Monday, and Bolton Wanderers also beat Barnsley 3-0 at Oakwell to leapfrog the Tykes. Wycombe Wanderers also rose a place, climbing above Peterborough United after winning 3-0 at the Western Home Stadium on Sunday. Posh have since parted ways with Grant McCann and reappointed Darren Ferguson for his 4th spell as manager until the end of the season. Now, Curbs, the joint 2 has been occupied by Plymouth and Ipswich for a little while now, but Argyle are pushing their way as well. How do you sort of see that chase at the top concluding? Do you think it's going to be as competitive come May? Yeah,
absolutely. It's them 3 contesting two spots, and I think whoever falls out of that, it's funny when you get into them playoffs, the team that has been battling away for the top 2, doesn't seem to do as well. They've perhaps just not made it. Come into the playoffs where the teams who are in the playoffs are full of excitement and confidence because they've made it, and they don't seem to do so well, do they, the teams that come 3rd? That's going to be a real tight right to the end of the season, I think.
Manny, today's opponents picked up a decent draw at Ipswich Town. Most of that was played with 10 men. Will they be coming into this game in quietly confident mood? Because is there something a little bit extra when you've ground out a result like that at a team higher above in the league with the man disadvantage?
Of course, it's 2 draws on the bounce that they've got now, but 2 good results, and both of them down to 10 men. So I'm sure they'll be coming here with a bit of confidence. Having said that, they haven't won away in the league since November. I think it's the 8th of November or something like that. So I think it's a good opportunity for us to take the game to them. They'll probably look to take a result from us, and we can't let that happen. And we've got to find a way to break them down if they do sit back and just defend. But yeah, they will be quietly confident, but I'm more confident in us to take the game to them, especially off the back of the result last week. Good.
Well, it's certainly evenly and tantalisingly paused. Curbs, I wanted to ask as well, I mentioned a couple of managerial departures. Of course, the Portsmouth game last week meant that Danny Cowley lost his job. How difficult is it for a manager to come in at this point of the season when a team is on a somewhat downward trajectory to turn it around?
Yeah, I've done it myself when I went into West Ham, and it's really difficult learning about the players while you're trying to win matches. That's why it's always better to go in pre-season, so that perhaps the results don't count so much. And Dean's come in and he's sat upstairs for the Brighton game. Then he's made his decision for the Oxford game and changed the shape and brought players in. Then bang, changes it again for the Portsmouth game. And trying to pick up results is so difficult as well. He's got it on his mind. Is that one good enough? Is that one good enough? Do I need to try and do something in this window? So there's loads of things going on, but what really helps is if you can pick some results up, it just eases the pressure. So I think he's been quite level-headed about it, and you know, the way he talks. I think, for me, what happened at Portsmouth, and it was exciting and it was really encouraging, it was the pace and the mobility of the side. That was the first thing that I noticed. And I'm really looking for, I don't know about how many Charlton fans are going to be here today, but surely you've got to be looking at our front six. You know, the way the midfield operated against Portsmouth, and then front three.
It's exciting.
Even Manny at his full fitness. Wouldn't fancy Corey Blackett or Rasaki running at him.
I've had to in training. It's not a good afternoon.
Yeah. So if we can get the ball to that final third, and the way everyone's talking that Dean wants you to get up there a little bit quicker, then let's see what they can do, because listen, they scare you, and I don't care how much video work the opposition do, you don't know until you're actually out there and you're up against one of them. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it today.
Well, we are certainly looking forward to it as well. And this weekend, of course, is FA Cup weekend, which means there are only 4 fixtures in the league today. So let's take a little look at them, shall we? League leaders Plymouth travel to 5th place Bolton, while Cambridge United, who sit just 2 points above the drop, host Bristol Rovers. Meanwhile, Morecambe, who have won their last 2 league games by an aggregate score of 7-0, welcome Cheltenham Town to Lancashire. Now, Curbs, given that there only are 4 games today, does it add a little bit of extra significance for us to try and capitalise and take advantage upon that?
Dean's already mentioned it, isn't he? He's already mentioned it. He said that, you know, if we can get the result today, we can go above the opposition and move into the mid-table. And it just eases that pressure about looking over your shoulder, and we suddenly starting looking that way. So that's why I think, I'm not being funny here, this is the most important game of the week for me. I know we've got a massive one in midweek, but sort this one out first.
Yeah, good advice there. Well, let's take a little break from this afternoon to bring you some updates from around the football club. Ticketing news, as always, first. And after today, Curbs just mentioned it, our attention does turn to the trip to Old Trafford. After selling out our initial allocation of 7,403, just minutes after tickets went on general sale, the club received an additional 2,005 tickets from Manchester United, and they too are selling quickly. The last few tickets are still available, so make sure you join them at the Theatre of Dreams next Tuesday. Next week is set to be our biggest away following in over 20 years. If you've been smart and you've got your ticket already, then you are advised to collect them as early as you possibly can. More information on ticket collections can be found at cafc.co.uk. Our under-21s made a winning return to action on Thursday afternoon as they came from behind to beat Hull City 3-2 in the Premier League Cup at Prince's Park. You saw that stunning equaliser there from Corey Anderson before a pair of penalties from Dylan Gavin earned them the victory. A very well done to our young lads. And the club will be hosting a PSA testing day at the Valley ahead of our home game against Fleetwood Town on Saturday, February the 11th. The fixture is also the club's annual Men's Health Awareness Day, and as part of the match day, supporters from both clubs can get a PSA blood test at the stadium. The PSA test is a blood test that measures the amount of prostate-specific antigen in your blood to help diagnose prostate problems, including prostate cancer. To find out more and to please book your test, visit www.cafc.co.uk. Today's game is the club's annual memorial match with fans, players and officials from both clubs uniting for a period of applause to remember all those connected to the 2 teams who have passed over the last 12 months. The list of names will appear in today's matchday programme and will scroll up the big screen as the memorial takes place ahead of kick-off. Everyone at the football club would like to pay tribute to every member of the Charlton family that we lost in 2022. Everyone at Charlton Athletic would like to wish Jake Forster-Caskey all the very best in his future career after the midfielder completed a permanent move to League Two side Stevenage on Tuesday. The 28-year-old, who joined Charlton back in January 2017, played 128 games for the club and scored 13 goals. He was also part of the Addicks promotion winning squad in 2018-19 and picked up the Fans Player of the Year award for the 2020-21 season. All the best at Stevenage, Jake. Back to ticketing, and we would like to encourage all Charlton supporters to head down to the Oakwoods tomorrow to support the Addicks women's team in their opening game of 2023. Karen Hills' side take on MK Dons in the Vitality Women's FA Cup third round, with the match kicking off at 12 p.m. You can get your tickets in advance by visiting www.booking.cafc.co.uk, or you can purchase from turnstiles on the day. Right, sticking with news on our women's team, earlier this week it was announced that Lois Roach has signed a one-year contract extension at the football club. Charlton TV caught up with her to discuss that news, as well as her rehabilitation from a long-term ACL knee injury.
I'm really happy and grateful to be signing a new deal with the club, obviously coming off the back of a long-term injury. I kind of see it as a positive as well, like it was a good challenge for me, it gave me a reset, it gave me things to work on, like off the pitch and on the pitch. And yeah, it's been a good challenge, and I feel like it's gone, touch wood, relatively quite smooth, and I feel better, stronger, fitter from it, so yeah, I'm just ready to go now. I think the young players bring things, the older player bring things, but I think to help with game management, encouraging the younger players, you know, it's not the end of the world if you misplace a pass or you have a bad game, and trying to keep standards, intensity in training, where if you're not in the team or, you know, you've had an injury or whatever, where I've been through things now, been in the game a long time, like you said, just helping people, and we're together as a team, and that's what's going to come in to play like near the back end of the season.
Fantastic to hear from Lois there, and what an incredible attitude to what has been a really difficult rehabilitation for her. But that news of a contract extension is very merited. So let's remind ourselves of the ticketing news, because the team are in action tomorrow, and you can get your tickets and support the female Addicks for £8 for adults and £1 for concession. You can get those tickets online by visiting booking.cafc.co.uk, or alternatively, as I mentioned earlier, you can purchase at the turnstile. But note that if you do so, the ticket prices will increase by £2 if brought on the day. Right, Manny, we've got you in the studio making your Charlton TV debut. Let's talk about you a little bit, because your career is a really, really interesting one. You were part of the Crystal Palace Academy, and then as a teenager moved to Germany to play. Tell us about your journey.
Yeah, I was at Palace as a kid from the age of 11 up until I was 17. I left after doing my scholarship there, and left to go to Germany, like you said, to Borussia Mönchengladbach. And at the time, there weren't many kids doing that. It was before the Jadon Sanchos and the Reece Oxfords, and but I just saw it as an opportunity, and I just wanted to try something different and new, and immerse myself in a culture that was different to what I was used to, and I did that. Went out there, learned the language, played in the second team for a long time, which is they play in the 4th division of German football, and then ended up making my debut in the Bundesliga. And it was a really cool experience. Did 4 years at Gladbach before going to another team in the 2nd division in Germany. Played there for 6 months, and then moved to the States. Played at New York Red Bulls then for a couple of years as well in the MLS. So I've been all around the gaff. I've been all around the place, yeah. I'm
sure our German Addicks will be especially pleased that we've got you in the studio today. And Curbs, I think it says a lot about Manny as a teenager to make that decision. I think more and more scrutiny perhaps is coming for how clubs treat players when they reach that pivotal age. And to make that decision to go and immerse yourself in a different culture and so on is very impressive.
Well, it's so much easier just to say, this ain't for me. You know, I've not made it at the club I've started off at. This ain't for me. I'm going to do something else. And unfortunately, lots of players, and there's a bit of a study going on with the league managers about, you know, the failure rate of these young players. And I know that the young players now have the academy, they have the education and this, but really they want to be footballers. You know, so it's really difficult to prepare them for the bad news. But what Manny done, he went, no, I've got some bad news here and I'm going to carry on and I'm going to make sure I'll give it my best shot. And to go abroad, like he did, you know, it's great. And so when you come back to England?
When I come back to England, yeah, at the end of the 2021 season, the MLS, I come back and went to Swindon. And that was my first stint in professional football.
And that's because Ben was at Palace?
That's because Ben was at Palace. He took me when I was 11 years old,
Yeah.
15, 17 again, the under-18s, and then he was at Swindon. So I gave him a ring and I said, can I stay fit for a bit whilst I'm looking for
Why not?
MLS clubs? And then after a couple of days, he said, do you fancy signing here? And I said, actually, I've enjoyed the last couple of days and I enjoy playing in England. So
And
that's
here
how
you
that
find
went.
yourself at Charlton.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
And I know for you it will have been a difficult season. You've had some injuries to overcome. I just wonder, given when you look back at your career and the positions that you've kind of fearlessly dealt with, how it's rounded you as a person to then be able to deal with setbacks, because it must be mentally quite draining.
This has probably been the easiest period.
Okay.
Moving away from home and, you know, being away from friends and family was easily tougher than this injury. I'm back in London. I live at my mum's. My friends, my family are around. So if there's any silver lining, it's that I'm able to.
Essex boy.
Not
Are you
quite.
an Essex boy?
Not quite. He wishes.
I'm just trying to take you as one of
East
his own.
London.
He's
Not
the other side, he's the other side.
Yeah,
You have to
no.
come through the tunnel.
Yeah, I went.
Oh,
I sorry, tunnel buddies. I went school in Essex. But I'm a Hackney boy.
You're a Hackney boy.
I'm a
Oh,
Hackney
okay,
boy,
so
yeah.
how do you feel representing a South East London team? Who is your club?
Charlton.
Yeah? No, as in like who do you support? Who's the team other than Charlton?
I'm a Gooner. I was a Gooner growing up. I'm an Arsenal lad.
Interesting.
I went to the Emirates the other day actually.
Well, there's not many of them in Woodford.
No, I'm an Arsenal lad. And it's a lot easier being an Arsenal fan these days, isn't it?
I bet you're enjoying it, you're relishing it. You've timed your visit to the Charlton TV studio very, very well. Look, I've tried my best to contain the excitement ahead of next Tuesday's trip to Old Trafford, but let's talk about the game, Curbs, and your experience, because as manager of Charlton, you were used to coming up against Manchester United.
Yeah, but not very good results.
No, I wasn't going to mention them.
As I was explaining to Manny, and listen, one Charlton fan especially ribs me about the fact that I had 15 games against Man United and didn't win one of them. And the quarter-final of the FA Cup, when Schmeichel got sent off, bringing King Grant down just before half-time, I thought, we've got a chance here, semi-final, you know, if we can get through it. Fergie made a couple I found out later that Fergie wanted to do this and do that, and Brian Kidd changed his mind. So in the end, Fergie was talking about getting back to the Valley. You know, let's get them back to the Valley and try and win the game there. But they took Paul Parker off and put Roy Keane right back. And Fergie wanted to do something else, but Brian Kidd changed his mind. And to be fair, they scored from a corner after about 3 minutes in the second half, and it really done for us. We never really got going in the second half. But yeah, I could never get a result. The only result I got, I think, was a 3-3 draw here.
Well, on that note, Curbs, let's take a little bit of a look back at that very game at the Valley, and it was a fantastic comeback. Curbs, talk us through it as we take a look back.
Manny, that I think they raced. I think Solskjaer scored a wonderful. Well, this is John Robinson, the equaliser. But I think this game was where Giggs hit a shot from the halfway line, it hit the bar and came back, and Solskjaer finished it. It was an incredible goal. But Fergie, they was winning 3-1, and he decided to take off. I think he took Beckham off because they had a Champions League game coming up and one or two others, and it rebounded on him because we came back and drew 3-3, and I think we might have had a chance to win it.
We are known for a comeback here, Manny. I mean, just thinking about that game earlier on in the season, which was epic as well. When this Valley is packed and it makes noise and it creates atmosphere, there really are very few places better to be.
Honestly, it's amazing to play in. And that atmosphere at the Ipswich game when we came back to 4-4, although a lot of the supporters had left before that, it looked like we were down and out. That atmosphere after we got that fourth goal was crazy. And then you see the Brighton game here, and first game of the season here. And when we when we get it going and we fill it up, especially in that covered end, it's no opposition fans or team will want to come and play here.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, I've mentioned him earlier today. I spoke to midfielder Scott Fraser to get his thoughts ahead of kick-off. Scott, thank you so much for joining me. A brilliant result for the team last week at Portsmouth. How important is it that we build on that result today?
Yeah, it's always important, you know, after getting a win, you can't wait for the next game to come around so that you can back it up. I thought we were really, really good in both aspects of the game in terms of controlling it, and then obviously we took our chances really well. And yeah, it's something we'll be looking to build on today. How much have you enjoyed working under the new manager? Yeah, he's been good. He's obviously coming with his own ideas. I think him, along with Hazy and obviously Marshy still being here, there's still a bit of what we've done at the start of the season in terms of our build-up play and that. Not too much has changed in that. We still look to control games. The gaffer's coming with his own ideas to make us more solid, which I think at Portsmouth really worked. And yeah, as I say, he's been good for all the boys. After today, we head to Manchester United. I just wondered, how difficult has it been not to think about that game? Yeah, of course it has, because it's obviously one of the, if not the biggest stadium in the world to go and play at, especially in England. You know, it's the one that all the boys wanted. So when it come out, yeah, we were obviously over the moon, but we know that, you know, we need to act professional and we need to go and take care of business today and then look forward to that. Well, you said it there, taking care of business today. What kind of test are you expecting from Lincoln? Yeah, I think they're a good side. I think they've had two really good results, albeit they've drew both games, but I think if you see Bolton and Ipswich coming up in your next two games, you know, you think the worst, but they've done really well to go and get 2 points out of that. I know they obviously got a man sent off, and I think they had an injury or two in their last game as well, so they'll obviously change things up, but they've got a good squad, they're competitive. It was obviously a good game last time. It was a 0-0, but it was a competitive game. Both teams cancelled each other out, and you know, they'll be looking to come here. I don't know if they'll make it harder, if they'll come and bring the game to us, but we'll be ready for both. You've been labelled as the Scottish Pirlo by fans. How nice is it hearing that when you play? Yeah, it's nice. I've been called a lot worse. So, yeah, when you hear it, you know, it's obviously a catchy tune. I think that come when I started playing a wee bit deeper. I've moved further forward again, which is something I enjoy. But yeah, it's a compliment, so I'll take it as one. Well, Scott, thank you so much for joining us and best of luck today. Cheers, guys. Thank you. Great to hear from Scott there. And Manny, what's he like as a teammate, Scott? What's he like in and around the training ground? He's a funny lad. I don't know who's given him the name, the Scottish Pirlo. The supporters. Really? Yeah. Fair play to him. He's a top player. He's a top player, and he's a top lad as well. I get along really well with him. In our off days, we share messages every now and then when he shares pictures of his newborn on the gram. And he's a good-looking dad, and a top man and top player as well. Do you know what? When I was growing up, I used to have an Italian shirt with Pirlo on the back. Like, he was one of my idols. Manny, if you were to have any comparison to any footballer that you idolised in the same way that Scott has had recently, which player would you like it to be? I know who I would choose, but I'm not sure if anybody would back me up on it. Well, my favourite player growing up was Thierry Henry, and I used to play a bit further up the pitch, so maybe then. And that was interesting because he was a manager of Montreal, and we played against them in the MLS a few times as well. So I've met him, yeah, got a picture with him, which is cool. But coming through Palace, Nathaniel Clyne was a player that I looked up to a lot. So watching his career going into Liverpool and then being back at Palace now, yeah, he's... It must have been really disappointing when we done the double over Arsenal. Say again? Yeah, exactly. Manny's like, I can't remember that. He just reflected on this season. Jensen's chip. Curbs, you made the point earlier about Scott's positioning and how it's changed in recent weeks, but it was very pleasing to see him in and amongst the goals on New Year's Day. He was set up as two holding midfield players with him and Dobbo, which doesn't really suit him for me. Although he was doing a decent job, I think we need to get him in the final third so he can express himself. And as I said earlier, I think part of his game is making goals and scoring goals, and I'm hoping that that's given him a real lift, that goal, because it was a fantastic goal last week. And as I say, playing in that a little bit more, because Albie Morgan, to be fair to Albie, he can play anywhere. You know, so if he's going to be sitting there next to Dobbo, giving us that little bit of defensive responsibility, that gives Fraser the opportunity to go and join. And the thing about the Portsmouth game as well was when we got in that final third, how many bodies were in the box? You know, trying to get on the end of things. So I'm really, I said it earlier, it was encouraging, it was exciting. You know, and after the Oxford game, I think everyone was fearing the worst. But let's give everyone a real lift, that performance.
Manny, from a player's perspective, I think it's fair to say it hasn't been the most straightforward of seasons. It feels like there's been quite a lot of highs and lows. As players, one thing that has always seemed to me is that there is a genuine unity amongst the group. Can you give us a bit of perspective about how you found it and how the team are finding it as well?
Yeah, absolutely. We're a very good change room, good bunch of lads, and I think that's important, especially when you don't, you go through tough times or changes of managers or whatever else, losses, draws when we should be winning. The most important thing is that the lads don't turn against each other, and we've been so together this whole season. We believe in what we're doing, we believe in what the new gaffer's doing, and we believe in ourselves, and we believe we can get ourselves up that table if we just keep putting together performances.
And every football club has it. Every dressing room has to deal with the kind of outside turbulence, the world of social media and so on. Yeah. But for the modern day footballer, part of your professionalism, I suppose, is putting that to one side and just focusing day in, day out. And how does that reflect in the sort of atmosphere at Sparrows Lane? Say there has been a disappointment. Are there kind of certain leaders within the group that will jivvy people up and honest conversations amongst the group when perhaps you have maybe fallen slightly short of your own standards?
There are 100%, and we talk about them when we have a bad game, but a lot of the games there's been a lot of positives to take from them as well, so we normally try to concentrate on them. Obviously, like I think the gaffer said after one of the losses, there's you don't want to forget about it, you learn from those mistakes, but a lot of them have been positives, and a lot of the lads are very positive lads as well, so we look at the good things we've done, obviously learn from the bad, but look at the good and try to take things in that way. That
feels like a very constructive approach to me. And one afternoon that was incredibly positive, and it started the new year in style, was of course our victory away at Fratton Park. Let's have a little look back at the highlights from that game. And Curbs, you've seen him return from injury and slot back into the starting 11 with poise that you would perhaps expect of a player far more senior.
Yeah, I think it was a big blow when Miles injured his ankle, and he come back. For me, he come back quicker than I thought he was going to be back. But he's something different. He can be the target man. He can be played in behind. He can use his pace. And just then, where he just flicked the ball around the corner. I think when you're confident that a ball goes into your centre forward and it's going to be held up there, this little ball here, that's Saki. When you're confident, that gives midfield players the opportunity to get forward and join in. And obviously the Portsmouth fullback didn't do his homework on Masaki, that he can come back on that left foot. But this is a disappointing thing. I know we went off about it a little bit, but that can't happen. That can't happen. Player being free in the 6-yard box from a corner to hook it in, but we recovered from it. And as I said earlier, the front three looked really dangerous. Added by Fraser, I mean, that must have given him such a lift.
Manny, when I watch these goals come back and watch the players playing like this is Charlton at its best to me, because it feels so instinctive and natural, and like that pressure is almost off. Is that as what you want as a professional, that kind of instinctive, quick-footed kind of play?
Absolutely. You always play better when you're not thinking too much about what's going on. And that's what you get from young players like Jez and Miles, and of course Corey as well. They just do without thinking too much. And that's always positive for players.
And this is the sending off, isn't it? Curbs.
It made no difference though, did it really?
But I was just going to ask you, Curbs, so unfortunately Marlon Pax had to miss out on a trip to Tottenham Hotspur today, but I've never seen, or very rarely seen, a player get sent off twice in the same season against the same team. It's a bit unusual, isn't it? Did you have any players under you that you can recall do that?
I had one or two that we had to bring off, actually, to make
save
sure
them from doing it.
That would have been great for George to have scored that, because it was a really good counter-attack. And he's got himself in the box, and I think he had a little bit of a nosebleed, didn't he? I mean, he got in the box, it was the header against Ipswich, wasn't it?
He should have scored at least 5 this season.
Yeah. So he's got in there and he didn't quite know what to do.
And Manny, were you at the game or were you watching on Charlton TV?
I watched on Charlton TV, as I have unfortunately done a bit too many times this season. I would rather be out there, but if there's any other place, I'd be watching this on Charlton TV.
There we go, we're going to clip that up. Thank you very much. But what was your assessment? If you had been alongside Brownie and Curbs in the studio, what were your kind of main takeaways from not only the victory, but the performance and the manner in which it was delivered?
We looked free out there, especially in that first 25 odd minutes. We really, and in fact the first half, we really took the game to them, looked free, and of course, like you said, we conceded that set piece late on. but I never really felt at threat. And yeah, it was a good performance.
And has there been a nice kind of bounce back into training this week?
100%. Off the back of the win, there always is. And, you know, there's obviously excitement going around the place, but we know full well that this game needs taken care of before we think about anything else. But yeah, there's been a buzz around the place, of course.
Right, well, we are approaching kick-off very, very quickly. So let's take a relook back at the starting 11 that Dean Holden has gone for today. And we can also see the 11 that Lincoln City are lining up with. Curbs, give me your final sort of thoughts on our team today.
Well, I just think that if we can... I've been here